Hello there. My name's Brandon and I make pictures out of tiny squares, and one of my favorite things is just coming up with new character designs and kind of imagining the world that they're from or even like what kind of gameplay would suit them. So that's just what I'm doing here, just having a bit of fun designing a character sprite. I was sketching out a few ideas by hand first, and I came up with this design for a cute spirit sort of character that I've named Hana. And the idea is that she's the Grim Reaper's like friendly daughter who travels around in the underworld. In Greek mythology, Thanatos is the god of death, so I just sort of poached the name Hana from within that name. Anyway, for now what we're seeing is that I've started recreating this drawing as pixel art just by using simple shapes to translate the design. I've taken a sphere, or like a circle I guess, and put it on top of the cone shape to achieve the main construction and proportions. This is actually the same thing I did when I drew it by hand anyway, so I'm just sort of redoing that process, but with pixels. The sprite size I'm working with here is 25 pixels tall when it's just like the shapes there. And that was mainly decided because I felt like the 11 pixel size circle for the head just seemed like enough space to make a simple character like this. So from that initial construction, I started drawing in the outline of what eventually becomes the hood of the cloak. And I was happy with how it came out in my ink drawing, so I'm just finding the right sizing and curvature of pixel lines to represent those strokes. What I'll do sometimes is lay in like perfectly straight lines first, just to connect the 2 points of where I want that line to be. And then I'll go in after and reshape it or add curvature to things as I see fit when filling out that character silhouette. For her sort of scythe accessory, a lot of times for something like this, I would just draw it in as like a perfectly straight line, because obviously that's sort of the cleanest look that you could have. But for this one, I put it at a slight angle just so it feels like a more natural angle, maybe, to hold it at. So this line just uses repeated segments that are 5 pixels tall to achieve that angle. I'm not really much of a pen to paper artist, obviously, but I like playing around with it, and I've kind of learned how to draw for the purpose of making pixel art later, like to keep that kind of simplicity in mind, if that makes sense. For this character, I was attempting the kind of simple cartoony style that I've been developing for my Monkey Avatar series of pixel art pieces, which generally consist of like solid or simple shading, very bright colors, and sort of like a friendly or cartoony look overall. Sometimes you make certain details with pen and paper and then have to sacrifice them later when working it into pixel art. Like I ended up scrapping the backpack idea because it wasn't really easy to see with the hands in the way, and instead I went with like a simple sash across her cloak, which I think just adds more color in that area anyway, and hopefully we'll just say maybe there's also some pockets or something to store items in, or I don't know, maybe since she's a spirit, she just kind of conjures things up. From here, I kept exploring ideas for this character. When I make a new character, sometimes I like to put together sort of a character sheet, just to organize some thoughts I have about the design, potential accessories, and like color palette, things like that. It ends up being a really nice creative exercise because you can kind of lead yourself into ideas that you might not have considered otherwise. So here I copy-paste the head a few times and try out a few different expressions just to play around with how she might emote, and see what's possible at this pixel art sizing. Even within a space of like 2 or 3 pixels of height for the eyes, you can still make some really nice and simple shapes that work as different expressions. Next, I moved on to exploring her scythe weapon a little bit more, and in earlier drawings this character was actually just going to be carrying a staff that had a flag on it, and I thought it'd be cool if that flag could kind of lock up into a blade, and that idea is actually what led me to designing her as this sort of Grim Reaper type character anyway. So here for the character sheet, I'm just exploring those 2 forms of what I'm calling her banner scythe, the flag mode and the blade mode, to work out like what their pixeling could look like. And finally, I decided to create a logo to finish off this character sheet. One of the things that I love about games, almost as much as when they have really great pixel art, is like when they have an awesome and like colorful, well-designed logo to go with it. The same kind of goes for anime too, like there's often really nice word art there as well, especially when the design of it ties into the character or the story through the use of different colors and shapes, or even like different sort of accessories appearing in the word art itself. I played around with a few title sketches first, and I settled on the title Grim Girl Hana, which, I don't know, if you were just to have looked at my sketchbook without any context, you'd probably be like, I'm not sure what's going on here, but I think we need to be concerned. To translate my hand-drawn design, I started by making those Grim Girl letters in the circles, since they would be the lowest resolution item in the drawing anyway. Specifically, I sized out the letter M first, because that's the one that always needs the most room. You want to make it a minimum of 5 pixels across if you want to very distinctly hit all of those points of the letter. So I did that one first, and then the rest can kind of be sized out based on that one. For the larger bubbly Hana letters, I started by making the letter A as a large circle, since I could use that shape to form the other letters as well, and just have everything be built from the same consistent rounding to them. After spacing everything out to my liking, I moved on to final decoration and coloring, and based on my drawing, I tried completing the logo with the character coloring, and also the stripe pattern that's meant to resemble her banner size staff. But I don't know, it didn't really translate like I'd hoped, and so I do end up simplifying the rendering of it for the final version. Alright, so let's head into the reveal of the character sheet for Grim Girl Hana, and then I'll come back and wrap up with a few final thoughts. Here we go! Okay, so as you can see, I decided to finish off the character sheet by animating a few of the details within it. This is something I haven't actually tried before with character sheets, and I really like how much life it adds to the whole thing. Probably my favorite details are those little emoji-style expression animations. The little icons that are only about 5 by 5 pixels or so, and it's kind of fun to animate things that are that tiny, and just figure out like what can be done within that space. The animated version also helps convey the 2 modes of the banner scythe. I think actually probably that's what sparked the idea to animate this whole thing in the first place. And just if you're curious, this entire character sheet is on a canvas size of 270 by 270 pixels. The reason for that is because it scales up exactly 4 times to a size of 1080 by 1080. And I've had the most success when posting animated work to Instagram using that size. Currently, Instagram doesn't support GIFs, so if you've got an animation, you need to process it as an MP4. And when you upload your MP4 to Instagram, the quality tends to degrade quite a bit. But yeah, 1080 by 1080 seems to work pretty well, I find. Not always perfect, but pretty close. Okay, let's finish this off with a few CRT close-ups of the animated details. I hope you found this process enjoyable, so thanks for watching, and take care and keep it square.